I am about to do something that I have never before done in my 10 years of working at ChessKid and Chess.com. I'm going to show you an instructive position from a match that is still in progress. That's right, International Master Danny Wrench, aka my boss, aka that guy who wears the green suit. Hey, I wear a yellow suit. AKA just one of the funniest guys in the business. We are going to figure out today if he's watched my ChessKid video on Rook versus Pawn. Now he's white in this game against Polina Shuvalova, who might very well be a grandmaster by the time this video comes out. And Danny starts out with d6 because of course passed pawns must be pushed. Now Polina could have made the game a little bit boring by playing rook to e3 check. In fact, this would have been a perfectly reasonable move. Now you can see in red that rook is about to hang, so Danny would have to block. And after Polina makes a trade, she would actually have two paths for a draw in this position. One is just to push the pawn, and after we get into this pawn race, both sides would get a queen, and there's no danger at all to black, because even if Danny finds some super tricky way to trade queens, and even if Danny wins that one black pawn remaining, even the great Danny Wrench cannot win with the lone remaining rook pawn there on h3. As one chief chess officer to another Danny, we do not have this power. Now, she could have also made a draw if we go back to the position after the rook's trade by playing the move king f7, because her king will catch the pawn. Now, Danny has to play king e4 very soon, and even though he's going to lose his pawn, he can play h4, and after the pawns trade and the king takes, you can see that all of the pawns are going to leave the board. But let's go back to the beginning, because Polina goes for gold, trying to beat my boss. Okay, that's fair. She decides to capture, and she's now up a pawn, hoping that her two pawns can beat Danny's one pawn. Now Danny pushes, and here's the key for Polina. She has to make sure that her rook can sacrifice for that pawn, because if it cannot, Danny will get a queen, and the queen can stop two pawns pretty easily. So she better not play a move like rook to d3, because Danny will block with his rook, and this rook is not going to be able to sacrifice for this pawn. So if we go back after d7, she plays the only move, which is rook to h8. And now Danny wants to continue his quest of not letting the rook sacrifice for the pawn. He wants to get his king to e7, and he wants to get his rook to f8. So he plays rook f6 check to start, and the king goes to h5. Polina is all in on the rook sacrificing for the pawn and hoping that her two pawns give enough counterplay against the rook. So Danny plays king e7. We know what he's up to. Rook to f8, we know what's coming. Okay, now here black actually could allow the rook to go to f8 and then play check, about to sacrifice for the pawn. And then when Danny toggles the rook back to f7, she would then go back to h8 and we would do a little dance. And isn't that nice? And that's one way to draw. But she also plays rook to a8. This works as well. Now Danny says, please, here, kitty, could he please trade rooks? But she says, of course, no. She wants Danny's remaining pawn. And after king e6, she finally captures it. It was pinned. It wasn't able to move. And after king takes, now we get to the rook versus pawn stuff. Actually, there's two pawns, and this may seem simple, but I can tell you, this is really the meat and potatoes of the video. Can somehow these two pawns come down the board and even beat the rook? Well, actually, that's a no. But is there a way for black to at least make a draw in this position? Black has to be so careful. Now she starts out with king to g4. Not the only drawing move, but of course, probably the one most strong players would do first. The king is going to assist the pawns. Danny gets his king in the game, and then Polina plays king to g3. She could have also played f3. It's pretty much the same position. Okay, so Danny plays king to f5. And now in this position, what Polina does is actually sort of a transposition. There's two moves to still hold the draw. She could play f3, and then when Danny plays king e4, then she can guard the pawn with g4. She actually plays those moves in reverse order. We'll go back to the actual game. She plays g4 first, and after g4, king e4, f3. So you can see, doesn't really matter, it's just a transposition. Okay, so Danny plays the move king e3, stopping both pawns from moving for the moment. She correctly plays the move king to g2, and after rook to f4, this is the key move. This is a tough one. Black only has one move to make a draw, and Polina plays the very natural move king to g3, just trying to keep both pawns on the board. But amazingly, Danny plays this really simple move, rook to e4. He could have actually chosen any square on the fourth rank that was safe, and now she's in Zugzwang. you can see on the screen she actually lost on time, but she's losing on the board because the only way to keep an eye on the g4 pawn is to move your king somewhere to the right, either h3 or h4, and then Danny would have slid his king to f2. And the computer still insists that she lost, okay? And the king is getting in for the blockade. This is actually relatively simple to win. Even if the king moves to a square like this, you could actually play rook to e5, and that is a cool Zugzwang. Either black pushes this pawn and loses this one, or the only other legal move is king h3, and then there's a checkmate. And I get it, computer, you can put those symbols away. We know that white has won. So we need to go back, because there was a drawing move in this position, but what was it? She had to find g3. Turns out Polina had to watch my rook versus pawn video. You know the video. It's where, for some reason, my voice gets very deep. Rook versus pawn. You know, in another life, I was a movie preview announcer, but not this life. Okay, so in this position, she loses a pawn on purpose, but due to the very awkward placement of white's king and white's rook, she can play king h2. And now white needs to get this rook somewhere on the g file and this king to f2 once the pawn pushes, and there's just not enough time for Danny to organize those pieces. He's too busy dressing up in the green pawn suit. No, actually, he's just not coordinated enough with his pieces. He could play a move like rook f8, and wait, we're not quite done with the fun, because after g2, obviously, if the king moves, then black just promotes. That's not going to work. Now, white could try king f3 because Danny is really tricky. Trust me, I've played a lot of late night blitz with him. And the idea is that if we promote to a lady, it is a very funny checkmate. Rook to h8. However, Paulina's got some tricks too. She would have promoted to knight. Hopefully, Polina, you did not have auto queen on. We actually don't have auto queen on ChessKid. We don't want kids to get tricked. And this is a draw. Rook versus knight to draw. Even though the black king and knight are on weird starting positions, it's actually still not enough for white to win this position. Okay, we go back. There'd be one more idea by Danny. I'm sure he would have tried it. He might have tried rook check. And amazingly, your king has to blockade the only pawn. If you play king to g3, then rook to g8 check, and when your king goes back, then Danny is able to organize his king and his rook where he wants them to be. So if we go back, Polina would have had to have found the move king to g1, walking in front of your own pawn. That's like some weird Troitsky puzzle, if you guys know who that is. Okay, so king to g1, and even if he plays a move like king f3, then Polina would slide her king out, ready to promote, and Danny might try this trick again, and if you promote to queen, well, I think we saw this story once, didn't we? How the queen is defeated by the rook. But you know what else we saw? We also saw the under promotion story. This is the never-ending story, and black would still make a draw here, rook versus knight. Little bit of defending left, but I'm sure that the nearly GM Polina Shuvalova would have been able to hold this. Okay, well, at the time of this recording, I have no idea who won the overall match, but Danny got the best of this endgame, and Danny, thanks for watching my rook versus pawn video.